The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma is a seminal work written by psychiatrist and trauma expert Bessel van der Kolk. The book was published in 2014 and has since become a widely popular and highly regarded text on the subject of trauma and its effects on the human body and mind. Van der Kolk's central argument is that trauma is stored in the body and can have profound effects on a person's physical and mental health. Traditional talk therapy, while useful in some cases, is not always sufficient to heal trauma. Instead, van der Kolk argues that body-centered therapies that incorporate physical and movement-based practices, such as yoga, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and neurofeedback, can be critical in helping individuals heal from trauma. The book is divided into 4 parts. Part 1 focuses on the history and diagnosis of trauma, including the development of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, as a diagnostic category. Van der Kolk traces the history of trauma research, from the recognition of shell shock in World War I to the development of PTSD as a diagnosis in the 1980s. He argues that while PTSD is a useful diagnostic category, it is limited in its ability to capture the full range of trauma-related symptoms and experiences. In Part 2, van der Kolk looks at the effects of trauma on the brain, including the way in which trauma can change brain function and structure. He draws on the latest research in neuroscience to illustrate how trauma can alter the brain's stress response system and lead to a range of physical and mental health problems. Van der Kolk also looks at the ways in which trauma can affect memory, including the ways in which traumatic memories can become fragmented or dissociated. Part 3 explores different therapeutic approaches to healing trauma, including body-centered therapies, expressive arts therapies, and psychopharmacology. Van der Kolk argues that traditional talk therapy is not always effective in treating trauma, and that physical and body-centered therapies can be crucial in helping individuals to release and heal from trauma. He provides case studies and personal anecdotes to illustrate the effectiveness of these therapies, and argues that they can help individuals to develop a greater sense of safety and agency in their bodies. In Part 4, van der Kolk looks at the larger social and cultural context of trauma, including the effects of trauma on families, communities, and societies. He argues that trauma is not just an individual problem, but is also a social and political issue. He explores the ways in which trauma can be perpetuated through cycles of abuse and neglect, and looks at the ways in which trauma can be addressed on a larger scale through social and political change. Overall, The Body Keeps the Score is a groundbreaking book that has helped to shift the conversation around trauma and its treatment. It has become a seminal text in the field of trauma therapy, and has helped to inspire new approaches to healing trauma that recognize the importance of treating the whole person, rather than just the symptoms of trauma. Van der Kolk's emphasis on the connection between the body, the brain, and the mind has helped to bridge the gap between traditional therapy and body-centered therapies, and has opened up new avenues for healing and recovery.